Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli, the computer guy, here for your daily dose of the roars as I scream about all of the incredibly stupid stuff going on in the world of technology. I do these videos in order to fund a Silicon Dojo, free to end user hands-on technology education in Durham, North Carolina. We have many classes coming up. These are in-person classes. If you want to take a look at our schedule, you can go to silicondojo.com to see what our schedule looks like. If you want to help support these classes, do remember free to end user is not actually free. That's why I do these types of videos. If you want to support them, there's a donor box link down below. And with that, wow, this is so screwed up. This is so messed up. I think this is kind of interesting because it goes along with the storyline I've been talking about for a while, with the whole idea of how like community intelligence operations are becoming more and more powerful. And basically the whole question of what happens when individual people can start launching intelligence operations that rival what the CIA or FBI or KGB could have done 20 or 30 years ago, right? With cameras nowadays, with facial recognition nowadays, with so many different things, a very limited number of people can actually launch a rather powerful surveillance operations in order to try to accomplish whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish, right? I've talked about that here in the United States with the Sleeping Giants campaign, right? And basically that the idea was the blue hair progressives out there thought it was a really smart idea to start tracking down individual people at particular protests and then literally getting them fired, right? Okay, we're going to take pictures of them. We're going to figure out who they are. We're going to figure out who they work for. And then we're directly going to pressure their employee to get them fired. And one of the things that I've warned is that's probably going to be a bad idea. You pull that crap on one side and the other side is going to pull it on you. But what becomes more interesting is what happens when this starts scaling up, what happens when this starts going into a warfare scenario. One of the big things that I get concerned about right now, I've done a couple of videos talking about this, is how private enterprises are now being used so integrally in the military, right? Google just signed another agreement with NATO to provide services. Amazon is providing services for Israel, right, for human rights violations, right? Amazon, Jeff Bezos is 100% okay with the genocide going on in Palestine right now. And the question becomes is essentially, what makes a legitimate target, right? When I was in the Army, when people that I know were in the military, right? If you're a signals person or you're whatever, and you get hit by a round, right? Clean kill, right? The other person kills you. You may go and try to storm their hill or whatever and try to kill them, but you're a soldier and you died in combat. That's how shit goes. What becomes interesting nowadays is basically the whole thing of we have more and more quote unquote civilians, like really fucking civilians, like not just like military people in civilian clothes, but like civilians that couldn't run a couple of miles, God help them, right? And these people are being used in order to commit genocide and ethnic cleansing and be used in military and the rest of it. Think about the Ukraine war, right? Starlink is being used in order for the Ukrainians to fight back Russia. And however you feel about that, I agree with that. I agree with supporting Ukraine. But one of the questions becomes, right, if that's their signals infrastructure, isn't their signals infrastructure a legitimate target? And what does that look like on the world stage? And this becomes really interesting looking at what happened with October 7th a couple of years ago with Hamas and Israel. Coming from the Israeli Times, Hamas spent years mining IDF troops' social media for intel on bases and tanks. What is fascinating about this, and I've talked about this with social media and the whole question of is it worth it for any of us, is you have all of these Israeli soldiers. One of the interesting things with Israeli soldiers is most of them are drafted, right? So you're either conscripted or you're drafted into the service. So they're much more civilian-y than volunteers necessarily. And so they've been posting things online, right? They post things to Facebook and they post things to Twitter and they post stuff, right? And one of the things I talked about before is one image or one post in what's called isolation on its own might not be very valuable. But you aggregate just a tremendous number of these posts over years, and apparently you can get a hell of a lot of information about the enemy. Terror group said to have spied on 100,000 soldiers' online accounts, gathering data to map bases, build VR training models, and even learn how to disable tanks. That's the one I'm not sure I believe. That's the one I'm like, what? Is this an Austin Powers movie? Have I gone into the Austin Powers multiverse here? Anyways, military investigations have reportedly revealed that Hamas spent years collecting sensitive intelligence on IDF bases and equipment, especially tanks and their operations, from soldiers' social media activity, allowing the terror group to disable tanks and raid army bases during its October 7th, 2023 onslaught in southern Israel. Army radio reported Sunday that a specialized Hamas intelligence unit built a detailed database over several years by piecing together thousands of social media posts by soldiers, including photos and videos specifically focused on the Merkava Mark IV tank, the most advanced armored vehicle in the IDF arsenal. According to the report, Hamas learned about a hidden kill switch. And again, I gotta believe this isn't true. Why would anybody put a hidden kill switch on your most powerful tank? Here's the thing. It's the most powerful tank we have ever built. It can crush everybody. That's why we put a hidden kill switch. Dear Israelis, you do realize that war is not video games. You don't have to specifically put a vulnerability into your incredibly powerful tank just so the other chance has a chance of destroying it. I really look at this and I'm like, please tell me that's a joke. Please, dear Israel, for the 3 Israelis that still watch my videos, please tell me this isn't fucking true. Anyways, Hamas learned about a hidden kill switch on the tank that disables the vehicle and renders it useless. Fuck me. Which they utilized during their attack on IDF bases along the Gaza border on October 7th, especially during their assault on Nahal Oz base, where 53 soldiers were killed and 10 were taken hostage. The extent of the terror group's understanding of IDF bases and equipment was only made known to the military when soldiers found a tunnel complex in early 2024 containing a trove of intelligence data about military positions, vehicles, and units, which had largely been gathered by monitoring the social media accounts of some 100,000 Israeli soldiers. The tunnel complex, dubbed the Pentagon by the IDF, was reportedly located underneath central Gaza's refugee camps. The underground complex stored maps, intelligence reports, virtual reality simulators, and full-scale models of military equipment, which Hamas accumulated over some 5 years of intelligence gathering. According to the report, Hamas's intelligence units used the facility as a headquarters for a meticulous multi-year intelligence and training program based largely on open source information inadvertently leaked by soldiers online. So that's the other interesting thing to be thinking about too, right? This isn't collaborators, right? This isn't IDF collaborators that walked in with big ass books about the tanks. Oh yes, look at the index for kill switch, right? They didn't bring like the manuals for the kill switches or whatever. This wasn't infiltrators, right? This wasn't Palestinians that somehow got into the IDF and then leaked information back or any of that. This is just simply what they were able to collect in open source social media and other open ways. And I think this is a really big thing to be thinking about. And this is why I get so frustrated with this whole TikTok shit show, is that if we really want to theoretically secure the United States, and if we really do want to protect the members of our military and intelligence operations and all that kind of thing, right? Simply focusing on one platform like TikTok, simply focusing on who owns TikTok really misses, to say it misses the forest for the trees is an incredible understatement, right? Does anybody here believe that Hamas is really the owner of Facebook, that Hamas is really the owner of LinkedIn? Like, maybe I missed it. I've been doing tech for 30 years. I could be wrong. What major big tech social media platform does Hamas own? Right? I don't think they own any of them, but they were still able to collect all of this information, right? People put that out in the world. The facility was also used as an underground training base for the terror group's elite Nukba force, which created a unit specifically trained to operate IDF tanks using intelligence gathered via social media. I can't even fathom what the fuck that was about. Like, you'll notice my army days, I talk very few things about where I was actually stationed or whatever, because, you know, there's this whole need to know. I don't think it matters. It's been fucking 30 years. I really don't think anybody gives a shit. I don't think there's a lot of value there, but I don't talk about the facility I was stationed in, because why the fuck would you? Like, seriously, why the fuck would you? Right, this is interesting, right? We did this with Kyle Hansloven. So Kyle Hansloven is, he was an ex-NSA person. He worked for the Air Force. He was in the Air Force, then he worked for NSA. Now he created this company called Huntress, right? And we talked about this whole, what the fuck has happened with the Instagramification of the intelligence services. Like, one of the interesting things that I found, like when Kyle's PR person contacted me at Web Summit, it was like, here is this ex-NSA operative who's a founder of a $2 billion company. And every time I've talked to Kyle a number of times, and I'm like, seriously, what the fuck is up with this? What the fuck? Have you ever heard of OPSEC? Did they, when did NSA stop fucking teaching OPSEC? Is all I want to know, right? And I give them crap about that. But what's fascinating here, can you think about these soldiers actually putting out so much information about their tanks online that their enemy literally has a reasonable expectation of being able to fucking drive their own military equipment? What the fuck? And this is why Instagram and intelligence operations should not go together. Anyways, while the special Hamas tank unit was initially supposed to commandeer the tanks and drive them into Gaza with the intention of using them against the IDF in battle, on the day of the attacks, the operatives failed to do so and only succeeded in disabling the tanks, the report said. So thank God they did not actually learn enough to be able to drive the fucking tanks. Jesus Christ. Oh, they were only able to disable the tanks. And again, this is coming from the Times of Israel, right? This isn't coming from Al Jazeera. This isn't coming from the South Chinese Post or whatever. This is fucking the Times of Israel saying that Hamas learned enough about Israeli military operations. One, to find the weak point in the tank, and two, to think that they could actually drive one of these damn things. Anyways, still the group's success in disabling the tanks deeply puzzled IDF brass at the time, as they were unsure how Hamas fighters figured out how the Merkava Mark IV's hidden kill switch until the army uncovered the extent of the Hamas intelligence unit's database. Yeah, maybe don't put a kill switch on your tanks. I know. I'm just a geek in my basement. I'm just a geek in my basement screaming at clouds. But maybe, I was going to put this out there, maybe. Don't put a fucking kill switch on your tanks. The intelligence unit, which reportedly consisted of some 2,500 operatives, created tens of thousands of fake social media accounts to follow hundreds of thousands of IDF soldiers in the hopes that the soldiers would post sensitive and classified information about their equipment and bases. Over 5 years, beginning in 2018, Hamas collected and studied the data, building intelligence reports that the IDF probes said rivaled the military's own special operation dossiers. Right? So think about this, right? Mossad, right? The Mossad is considered one of the best intelligence operations in the entire world, right? And they're saying that Hamas fucking rivaled them using Facebook and LinkedIn. The unit also managed to infiltrate internal WhatsApp groups for various IDF units by creating fake profiles which they used to track individual soldiers from the time they were drafted through their promotions to officers and even high-level commanders. That's the other thing to be thinking about with these intelligence operations, right? That they go over for a period of time, right? You get in good with somebody while they're being drafted, right? If you have a long-term view, you just keep that relationship up, whether it's social media or it's in person, for the next 10 years. And it's amazing where that person might be in 10 years, right? Hey, I wouldn't normally tell anybody about this, but I've known you for the past 10 years, so I know I can trust you. Again, as I've said many times, distrust, verify, stay suspicious. Distrust, verify, stay suspicious. Just saying. And don't put fucking kill switches on your tanks. That's gonna be my new phrase. Distrust, verify, stay suspicious, and don't put fucking kill switches on your tanks. Anyways, according to the report, Hamas's military intelligence unit produced daily reports about routine IDF activity that detailed where every military company was located, where every Iron Dome battery was positioned, and whether the IDF made changes to troop deployment or quietly moved forces between sectors. An officer quoted by Army Radio said the military knew about some of the Hamas's training models, but said, quote, "We never imagined how accurate they were. Quote, Hamas knew the bases better than I did, and I served there for many years," another officer told the outlet. The Times of Israel reported in March on the IDF's probes into the Hamas-led attack on the Nahal Oz base, which found that the terror group knew how many troops were deployed at the base at any given date, as well as the best time to attack, how long it would take for the IDF to send backup troops to the base, and what the best route were to reach the base. A document found in Gaza detailed the exact layout of the base, including bomb shelters, barracks, generator rooms, communications antennas, surveillance cameras, and the war room. Fuck me. Hamas knew where the commanders slept, how effective the shelters would be against rocket fire, and how many soldiers had weapons and which weapons. So yeah, this is real. I don't know how much longer I have to keep screaming this shit from the fucking rooftops until people will start paying attention to me. This is real. You do not need nation-state actors in order to do very sophisticated, complex intelligence operations. And as we can see here with Hamas, I mean, the amount of this information is just mind-boggling, right? Where is the order and discipline of the IDF? We're told about the IDF is like the most professional military in the entire world. Fuck off. Fuck off. Right? If Hamas was able to get this much information simply out of things like social media posts, Bucko, you fuckers, don't, fuck off. Just fuck off. Anyways, I've been swearing a lot today. This has just been one of those days where I just swear so much because it's just so asininely stupid. And the thing that, again, you need to be thinking about is, does it make sense to be on social media? One of the things I've talked about before, again, is what is your risk tolerance? And is it worth it to be on social media anymore, right? Social media is an inherent risk. Whether it's from a mental standpoint, whether it's from a cybersecurity standpoint, whether for these jackasses, from an actual security standpoint, the reality is Facebook is a risk. Twitter is a risk. They have a massive number of risks associated with them. And I think you really have to question what the value of these platforms really are in 2025 and going into the future, and whether it really is worth it to you. It is fascinating that an organization like Hamas could pull this level of information from things like social media posts and open source things. That is just absolutely fucking mind-boggling. And that's where you got to think about, like when I do my cybersecurity classes, one of the things that I find fascinating is that so many people on their LinkedIn profiles, they say exactly what they do for their current companies. Right, but think about this, right? If I'm a hacker, again, if I'm a nation state hacker, right, and I'm looking to try to compromise certain companies, wouldn't it be really nice if I could simply go to a Rolodex of everybody that works in the company to find exactly who I need to do spear phishing attacks against? Right? If I was running a company that actually had anything that were worried about intelligence operations, basically one of our policies would simply be, you cannot put on LinkedIn that you work for our company. Right? 6 months, maybe 6 months, 6 months after you leave our company, you can post that you previously worked for us and not disclose what you did. You could say I was a lead tech or as a senior engineer or whatever else, and fuck you, that's it. Nobody else needs to know what our fucking stack is. Why the fuck does the world need to know what our stack looks like? There is no practical reason for that. And, I say that kind of thing, and then people just think I'm being exaggerating or whatever. I think about that way back when. So when I had my first corporate job, I had a partner. Oh, she was fun. She was fun. Anyways, so again, I come from the military and all that kind of stuff. So we were sitting down with our boss. So our boss was always states away. Our boss was never even in the same state. And so she was my partner. So we're sitting down, we're having breakfast one day with our boss, talking about different things. And I was talking to my boss and I was like, yeah, so what happens if one of us gets hurt? And I said, look, I go snowboarding. What happens if I'm, whizzing down the mountain way too fast? I take a turn wrong, I flip off, and I go into the hospital for a month. Like, what happens to my partner or whatever? What happens to our team? And I still remember my partner because she was a 40-year-old some odd woman who really liked to look down at the young guy. That was its own thing. That is not a women problem. That was my particular partner problem. But anyways, and she laughed at me. She fucking laughed at me at that. I mean, Eli. Oh, look at Eli. Just, what if I go to the hospital from snowboarding? Anyways, the funny part of that story was about 2 months later, she was walking out the back of her house to take out the trash. There was some ice that she did not see in the step. She flipped up, came down, broke her, it was like either her femur or her hip or whatever, had to go in the hospital. They did surgery on her. They then fucked up the fucking surgery and left shit inside of her. I mean, I do actually feel bad for her in this part. Just fucked her ass up. She was 3 months out of the off. And like legitimately, she got fucked up over this. But I thought that was a funny thing, right? I'm sitting there asking like, look, like this is a real pot. What happens if one of us severely gets hurt? What happens to our team? We have 10 offices throughout the Northeast region. We have offices all the way from Washington, D.C. to Boston, right? You know, from the East Coast all the way into Pittsburgh. We're doing build outs. We're doing all of this other stuff. This is a tight operation with 2 fucking people. It would suck with one. And it did. So much it sucked with one. Anyways, and I got laughed at. And then she walks out her back door, slips on the ice, and wah, right? A less exciting reason to go to the hospital for basically 3 months. I think that's one of the things that I think is interesting when I talk about this stuff. When I talk about counterintelligence operations, when I talk about legitimate military targets, when I talk about operational security in an Instagram era. And in the weird thing that I find is everybody laughs me off. Like when I talk about this, they're fucking giggling at me. And like, look, I understand there's resource constraints, right? Look, Eli, you know, we're a fast moving company. You know, every resource that comes in, every amount of money that comes in, we feel that needs to go and be spent on scaling. Right, that is a practical thing. Like we understand that counterintelligence could be a problem. We believe that with the people we hire and what we're doing, that's not what we consider our biggest risk right now. Ergo, that's not what we're focused on. Like there's a lot of arguments there. But the funny part is when I talk about this again with counterintelligence and military targeting and military stuff is I don't get that. I don't get counter arguments. I get fucking laughed at. And that's where I get concerned for a lot of folks going in the modern world, right? Look at this. Hamas knew exactly where to attack. Why was Hamas so successful? The big question about October 7th was why they were so successful. And if it's because they just had so much more information than people realized, that could be a big reason. And the thing is, right, if we go to war with Russia, if we go to war with China, right now, like there's this whole idea that China is in it. Again, China is not my enemy. China man isn't my enemy. China man barely my competition. I got 99 concerns in my life right now, and fucking China man's like 99th. Look, dear China man, I'm not saying you're not a concern. Oh, China man, I've got my eye on you, like, 5 minutes out of a 24-hour day. Pay attention to what the fuck you're doing, right? But here's the thing, right? China is supposed to be the threat. So think about this. If Hamas is able to gather this level of information as fucking Hamas, what is China gathering? And then think about this. If you're an AWS senior programmer right now, right? If you're a tech lead at AWS or Google or Facebook or any of these companies. And as I've been talking about, all of these companies are supporting our militarization, right? Meta for fucking Christ's sakes, is in with Anduril to create these AR systems for the modern warfighter. They've been doing that shit for like 25 years. Anyways, right? Google is building systems. Microsoft is building systems. Amazon is building systems. All of these big technology companies are basically being the outsourced signals corps. Right? And if the signals corps is a legitimate target, if the United States government outsources the signals corps to Google and AWS and whatever else, why the fuck do they not become legitimate targets? Right? If we go to war, right, there's all these missiles, these rapid dragons, kind of cool. You can kind of you dump these missiles out of the back of a cargo plane and they're supposed to go attack China. But again, you need targeting. You need targeting that kind of stuff to know where to blow things up in China. What happens if you just put a number of Chinese operatives in the United States to just start plinking senior engineers. How many senior engineers have any idea of, operational, operational environment, security or whatever? I don't know. Becomes an interesting question. So what do you think about this? What do you think about Hamas literally being able to track 100,000 IDF soldiers, track them from being recruited to whatever positions they had as of October 7th, right? To understand, to actually know bases better than people that were stationed at those bases. And, we're able to find things like the kill switch on tanks. Is this part of your religion? Is this part of your religion? Are the Israelis like the Zionists like, no, Eli, you don't understand. Eli, you are able to commit genocide against the people so long as your weapon systems have some vulnerability. Is this somewhere in the Torah? It's like, oh yeah. Eli, if you look in the Torah and then you go back into the appendix, Appendix 95, subsection A, paragraph Z says, you can slaughter the fuck out of people, but your military equipment must have a vulnerability. I don't know. That has to be the joke. That has to be a joke. Dear Zionists, please tell me that's a joke. That's just fuck beyond me. Anyways, so what do you think about this? What do you think about what Hamas was able to do? What do you think about their, intelligence operations and all that with soldiers, right? Should soldiers have access to things like social media, right? With standard order and discipline, should social media be banned from folks like soldiers? Now think about WhatsApp group, right? Is there the perception that things like WhatsApp groups are more secure, inherently more secure, so that soldiers on WhatsApp's groups will be more open to what they're doing, right? Hey, look, Eli, I'm not posting this to the world. I'm only posting it to the WhatsApp group. What happened to need to know? Dear people, what happened to operational security? I just don't understand. Like, it's funny, like I do video, like again, I've been doing videos since 2009, 16 and a half years. 16 and a half years, I guess I've been doing these videos. And that's one of the things, like with operational security, there's only certain things that you see. I don't talk about a lot of other stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on in my life. Like you may think I'm very honest and open. I am honest. You may think I'm very open because I talk about my mother dying in her own shit as an alcoholic. But no, that's just, I don't know, that's my revenge. That's my passive-aggressive revenge. Oh, that's how you're gonna fucking die. Anyways, that's not actually as open as you may think, right? There's a lot of stuff that goes on. You just do not need to know, right? You do not see my wife in social media posts. You don't see a lot of stuff in social media posts, right? Because there's no need for it, right? Is it a true vulnerability? I don't know, but there's just no reason to put that shit out there, right? And so that's why I find fascinating now, especially with the soldiers, putting all this stuff out to the world. And it's like they don't really think about what the battleground looks like in the modern world. Like, think about this for a second. So let's say you got 100 agents into a country, right? You got 100 assets into a country, and you gave them relatively capable sniper rifles. And what if they went into a country and they just started plinking spouses? Right? What would that do to your military? Seriously, right? Because again, there's the idea, again, soldiers and all that. This is what I signed up for. Right? That's a lot of blowhardism, but we'll go with it. I know, this is what I signed up for. Fine. What happens if you just have 100 agents? And again, you have a country like the United States, 330 million people here, probably relatively easy to get 100 agents into this country. They just start plinking spouses. Think about the DC shooter, right? I was in the Baltimore, DC area when the DC shooter happened. He plinked. That motherfucker plinked quite a few people. What if you just had a group of agents that were just, their only job was to run around and plink spouses for as long as they possibly could, right? That would be scary. What would happen if they were running around to plink kids, And then think about all the information you put online. Does that make you feel comfortable? Anyways, I actually have to go do something. So with that, put your thoughts down below. If you like these videos, give us a thumbs up. If you hate them, give us a thumbs down. Call me amazing. Call me a dumbass. Whatever you do, just call me something. That's what gets us value here on YouTube. With that, I really do got to run. See y'all later.